The Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, or ticker symbol SCHD, just as of recently, as of filming this video at least, hit a brand new fresh all-time high, which I'm of course very excited about. And this is simply because I've been stacking up shares of SCHD in my long-term dividend growth portfolio for several years now, to the point to where as of right now throughout my 7-figure portfolio, I have a sizable position, and I'm happy to announce that this ETF is officially in the top 5 across my entire portfolio, which is super exciting for me. Now in this video, we're going to talk about this ETF, some of its recent performance, and how it works. I'm also going to share with you exactly how many shares of this ETF I hold as of right now, and my plan moving forward now that this ETF is once again trading at an all-time high. So whether you hold on to this ETF or maybe have ever thought about it, I promise you, you're going to want to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the market. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now, we're not going to necessarily dissect this ETF from start to finish. I've done that before on previous videos, so definitely check out my channel if you haven't already. But this ETF's objective is pretty simple. It's to track as closely as possible before fees and expenses the total return of the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. Now, if you have some time, definitely dig a little bit deeper into the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, because that's the main reason why SCHD has done so well historically. The methodology that this index tracks is very high quality. But more than that, SCHD is a well-diversified ETF that's very cheap to hold on to with a 0.06% expense ratio. It tracks an index focused on quality and sustainability of dividends, and at least as of right now, some of the top names in SCHD have been flying sky high, which is definitely helping the ETF press forward to new all-time highs like we saw recently. Now, speaking of some of the names in SCHD, there's around 100 different holdings all together, which of course are going to get shifted around once a year during the reconstitution. But at least as of right now, some of the top holdings are things like Lockheed Martin, we have names like abbvie, then we have names like Home Depot, BlackRock, Cisco, Coca-Cola, Amgen, Texas Instruments, Bristol Myers, and of course PepsiCo. Now, I've been the first one to admit, even as a large holder of SCHD relative to the rest of my portfolio, I've been the first to admit that some of the names in the top holdings of SCHD are awesome names, and some of them I'm not necessarily that fond of. But overall, because the reconstitution, and of course because that methodology, it feels like over time, year after year, the top names are always going to rise to the top somehow, and some of the bad performers are going to get kicked to the curb when it comes to ETF. Now, to get into some of the more exciting stuff, like I said, this ETF just as of recently, at least as of filming this video, did hit a brand new all-time high at around $83, $84 per share, which is super exciting considering within the last 52-week range, this ETF was around $66 per share, which a lot of investors back then sort of wrote this one off for good. I remember seeing across the dividend community, a lot of people were flash selling their SCHD, even selling it for a loss, saying that this ETF no longer has the appeal that it did at one time, and that SCHD was sort of doomed for good. And honestly, I sort of see where they're coming from, because it was trading sideways and down for quite some time. I mean, ever since early 2022, this ETF was trading at around $81 per share, but since then was trading sideways and down and sideways and down and sideways and down. But ever since it hit that fresh low of around $67 per share, it's been trekking up, of course, due to some of the top holdings getting some wind in their sail. Not to be completely transparent, whether or not this ETF in the short term, in the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, whether this ETF for me personally trades sideways, down a little bit, or even up, doesn't make too much of a difference for me, because I'm not looking to sell a single share of SCHD anytime soon. I'm currently 31 years old, and I'm looking to use this as a foundational position for my long-term portfolio, which I'm going to show you guys and share with you later on in this video. And besides, SCHD is around 3.5%, or if you got in a little bit cheaper, around 4% yield on cost. Dividend is paying a decent amount of cash flow to investors like myself, especially knowing that hopefully, at least, going off of historical performance at least, this ETF is going to pay more and more in cash flow as time goes on. Now, of course, we can't necessarily assume that an ETF or a stock or anything for that matter is going to for sure keep raising their dividends. Obviously, things can happen. There can be dividend cuts, suspensions, etc. But at least historically speaking, SCHD has paid more and more in dividend income to the tune of around 11% on the 10-year dividend growth rates. And honestly, even in a worst case scenario, sort of, I always assume that even if this ETF continued to pay, let's say 5% dividend growth rate ongoingly, that would still give investors like myself a lot of cash flow, especially if you're holding on to several hundreds, or maybe in the future, even several thousands of shares. Now, before we go through my position of SCHD and I share with you how much I'm earning as far as dividends go and what my plan is moving forward, I did want to share this with you guys also. SCHD, as of right now, since inception at least, has around a 13% average annual total return, with dividends reinvested along the way, or around a 381% total return. And again, this is with dividends being reinvested. With dividends not being reinvested, we're still over a 300% total return over the last 12.84 years. There's a reason why investors consider this one sort of royalty as far as dividend growth goes. This ETF has grown over time, paid investors like myself more and more dividends over time, and all while doing so not costing you an arm and a leg to hold on to. But now for the fun part. As you guys probably know by now, I've been grabbing shares of this ETF consistently for the last 2 years or so now. Before then I had a few shares, but I really took it seriously back in 2023. And through this entire year, I've been grabbing sort of as many shares as I can whenever I have extra cash balance. And as of right now, at least, I'm at 668 shares across all portfolios combined at an average cost per share probably around $75 more or less. Now, luckily, I grabbed a lot of shares of SCHD when it was in its high 60s and low 70s. And now at $83 per share, your cash balance is no longer stretched as far, if of course you're buying shares of this one. But what's cool is that if SCHD is paying around $2.80 per share per year in dividends, that means with my 668 shares of SCHD as of right now, I'm currently earning around $1,870 per year in dividends. Or if we were to divide that by 12, on average every single month, I'm looking at around $155 ongoingly, and of course this is not even including future dividend increases. Now, what's also crazy is that as of right now per year, if I were to reinvest all my dividends from SCHD into more shares of SCHD, just for example, this is saying if I don't buy another single share, I can currently drip around 22.5 shares of SCHD at its current share price, which of course in turn would buy me only more dividend income moving forward. So my plan over the last few years, at least in the short term, has worked out pretty good, and I'm talking about buying as many shares of SCHD as humanly possible, at least I'm talking relatively speaking. But my plan moving forward with this one is to continue to stack more and more shares of SCHD until I likely hit 750 shares or maybe 1,000 shares, depending on how things turn out throughout the rest of this year, and then at that point, I'll probably start building out more of a position in something like DGRO or FDVV or even DGRW, something maybe a little bit more growth focused, but who knows, maybe I'll just continue to buy more SCHD from there. But one thing's for certain, I'm not going to stop buying this one until I reach a share amount of probably somewhere around 750 shares, or even to be more granular, maybe it's to a point to where SCHD is one of my top 3 holdings across my entire portfolio combined. Me personally, as of right now, SCHD is of course a large portion of my overall portfolio, but not everything. And that's because as a 31-year-old dividend growth investor, I'm looking to use my portfolio, at least a portion of my portfolio's dividends within the next say 2, 5, 10 years to possibly use the dividends to live off. And although investing into something like SCHD, making it a core position for your overall portfolio is not a bad idea whatsoever in my humble opinion, I also invest in different higher yielding options because like I said, I want to use my dividends a lot sooner than some other investors. So now that we talked about the fact that SCHD reached an all-time high, which is super exciting, and I share with you exactly how many shares of this ETF I have as of right now, I lastly have a question for you guys down below. For those of you guys that are currently holding on to SCHD as of right now, how many shares do you have as of right now across your portfolios? Let us know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.